Welcome G. Let's discuss on the object-oriented programming concepts. Reason is that because we are learning a Java, so Java have a basic principle is Java support object-oriented programming concepts. So we have to know some basic principle what as a object-oriented programming offers. So first principle is about object because Java is the object-oriented programming language. So we should have to know what is the meaning of object. Okay. Uh, so object in is a software bundle of related states and behavior. Okay. Software objects are often used to model the real world object that you find in the everyday life. Like examples, car is the object, like bike is the object, like house is the object, like any things which you are used in daily life. That is a kind of example of a object. So and object with the help that's you can say this is the core principle, core fundamental block in a Java programming language. So if you want to write anything in a Java, uh, we have to use some kind of objects. Okay, and with the in the case of our uh, real times use case, whatever we are living on the daily lives every day, whatever the items we are interacting, like my laptops I'm talking to you, and my mic phone, my each and every objects, things which you are uh, using, that is considered as an object. Okay, so we note the object is a very basic building block of our Java programming language. Okay, if we more talking about object constructor, how the object construct, what kind of things. So generally any object have a two property, you can say. One have a some behavior, one have a some uh, fields state. So you know what the if let's see example about car. So car have a like lots of parts which through that the car is constructed. Like this is the part one, this is the part two, this is the part three lots. And after constructing, what the behavior, car help us to drive, help us to cover the distance. This is the functionality. Sometimes it's known as a attributes uh, through which is, let's say about talking about the any object like our laptop. The laptop is one object, and that have a your motherboard, CPU, all are these fields, a component, and through which this complete or object laptop was constructed. And what are the use case, what are the functionality we are using, running OS machine and something else. So be generally each object in the real times, if you thinking that object have a kind of some state, some attribute on which the particular objects are constructed, and there are some use case. If I were talking about the pen is constructed with a set of materials, and what are the use, what are the method, what are the behavior is for writing. So as a conceptually software objects are conceptually similar to the real world object. So B note Java object look like similarly real world object. okay, and that consists of state and related behavior. State means the attributes, the field on which the particular object was constructed, and the behavior means the functionality, the use, how as a human being we are using those objects. So sometime states also known as field, and as a programming terms in the Java programming sometimes say this is the variable object have some variable, and similarly expose the behavior, the use case and functionality what we are using. In the programming language we are saying a method, okay. So we generally whenever we are talking about the programming language generally talks the variables and the method. Variables refer to the your fields or state, and you are talking about the methods or functions, sometimes you say functions, that's represent your behavior and what are the use of those objects. So uh, methods operate on objects, and internal states serve as the primary mechanism for that object oriented communication, okay. If you want one object to communicate with another object, they take the help of methods. In method pass some object as a message, another method take as input. So sometimes hiding the internal states are requiring all the interaction uh, be performed through the objects method known as a data encapsulation. Okay, this is the one principle is encapsulation. Means here what trying to say कि all the states, all the variables are accessed outside of this object through your methods. That method known as your oh, data encapsulation means that means we are encapsulating the data inside the object, and if some other object want to access those data, they have used the methods. If you're talking what kind of benefits we are achieving while building a software with the help of objects. So the first benefit is about the modularity. The source code for an object can be written and maintained independently, that you can create one object and use, and sometime also getting the benefit about the information hiding that help us object help us. Let's see, we have a 1 2 3 4 5 attribute. So instead of those attributes we are exposing to other object in the in the form of 5 fields. Instead of we construct one object, that object hold all the four attributes, and you can expose hiding the attributes and exposing through the methods. And best things about code reuse, the same things writing multiple place, the object help us to reuse the code, and also help us about the pluggability and the debugging easy. If we have an object, instead of debugging one by one fields and value, if we have one object, that object help us to look all his states and behavior. So lots of other benefits we are getting the use of objects, but we ensure that object is the basic most critical principle of in Java programming language. Java is object oriented programming language, so we have to know what are the object. In simple words, object is any real time entity which as a human being we are using that object map to the Java object. Whenever we are mapping the real world object to the Java object, then we have to use up the help of some different terminology. Instead of each object have a some uh, component on which the particular object was created, that component known as is here variable, field, attributes, and what are the use of those object in the real time. That objects use case known as here behavior, method, and functions. Okay. So be clear, objects is anything which can be in the real time uh, help us as a human being to solve the particular problems. Lots of example I have anything like mobiles, your tablet, like your laptop, like your bike, like your car, like your washing machine, like your TV, like your refrigerator, each and everything that help us human being to do some works easily. So that is known as an object. And generally each object is constructed with some parts. Let's see, if you're talking about the mobile is constructed the set of element. The set of elements are part known as a state on which the particular object are composed. And what are the use of those object? Those object known as here functions, method, correct? So in this way, we have to uh, consider the object. So next, with respect to the Java is the concept of classes. So, reason is that in the real life, each and every object first preserve, and according to the set of behavior, we have to see this is the bike, the thousands of bike. So, bike is a one category. Okay, so here class is the kind of a is a blueprint or a prototypes for which objects are created. Whatever we are talking previously about the object, what is the object? So how we are creating objects? So as a programming language, first we have to create some kind of a group. Let's see, we are talking about the house. So this is the my house. Okay, this is my house. But to constructing your house, we have a initially kind of one architect, one designs on which key our house have a this length, this height, something, and this is our kind of prototypes, blueprints, designs, architect. On this basis, you have to create your object. From this designs, from this your architect, you have create multiple building. Let's give one house builder, uh, architect creating one architecture for your house, and the same architecture is for creating thousands of your house. From this same architectures means architecture specify your objects, what is the length, what is the height, what are the elements you are going to do, the number of elements. So all the things where you have is specified to create an object, that's a place, that's architecture known as a class. So class is just like blueprints or any prototypes for which objects are created. So class specify the specifications of an object. If I'm talking about the pen is an object. The pen is a class first specify what is the length of pen, what is the color, what is the size, something. These are somewhere specify. With the help of that specifications, lots of pins are created. So in the section class, okay, so any class that model the state and behavior. That means ki class is specify ki what is the states and behavior of a real world object. Okay, so in real times we always look a object. Okay, but think how those objects are constructed, how those objects are created. The person who create those objects, they have in a mind I have to, let's give want to create one table. The table have a some length with height. The some before creating the table object, they have in his mind ki I am going to create table with this specification, this is the height, this is the length, this is the width. Through help of that parameter, they are constructing the lots of table, right? So okay, so it's intentionally focus on the basic and showing how even a simple class can cleanly model states and behavior. That means simply be clear. Class is a kind of blueprints, means that class specify whatever you are going to create object, what are the element, what are the behavior should be for that objects. And one class, from one blueprint, we can create the number of objects. If you're talking about in the real world, you'll often find many individual objects all are the same kind. Okay, there may be thousands of other bicycles in the existence of the same kind and model. So each bicycle was built from the set of blueprints. Therefore, the contains the same component. So if you are looking lots of bike, so the bike company which have created those bike, they have a one set of blueprints. Okay, this bicycle have this set of ingredient, this set of component, this is the width, this is light, this is the quality we are going to build. So in object oriented terms, we say that bicycle is a instance of a class. That means ki bicycle is an instance of class, means ki what the company have a designs the architecture of the cycle, and from that architecture, from that blueprints, they created lots of bicycle. So all the bicycle is an instance of your class. An instance of a class known as your object. So and a bicycle is a class. So there are two component. One about the specification. Okay, what look like your object is going to create the document or design. From this document and design, we create actual object 1, actual object 2, actual object 3. So these all are the instance. Okay, the sometimes a object is a instance of a class is a specification that specify ki how look like your object, what the object have a behavior, what the object should have your attributes. So they have very tight understanding. Be clear. Object is the instance of your classes. A class means class specify the structures of an object. From one class, from one blueprint, you can create many number of instances, many number of objects. So this is the simple example. You can see how in the Java you can write a class. So simply there is a one keyword class. Maybe in future video I'll write the same code in my editor and show how this work. And this is your class name. Okay, and these are your attributes. What is the cadence? What is the speed? What is the gear? These are the attributes, and these are your behavior. These are your behavior. And maybe sometimes so this is your field and this is the method. So so next of very basic principle about the inheritance. So inheritance provides a powerful and neutral mechanism for organizing and structuring of your software. Okay, that means here class class inherit the states and behavior from other superclass as well. As what I mean, if you have a designs one class, okay, and you are going to create another class that look like the same behavior should be, plus you are want to add some more things as well. As so here, instead of writing the same class definition inside this class, instead we can inherit this property, and we can build our new class with the help of additional existing, you can say, uh, designs, existing architects. So class any class have a Java capability to inherit the variable. This class is going to inheriting the feature of this class. So this class known as a super class, or this class known as your actual class. Sometimes this is known as a parent class, sometimes this is child class or derived class as well. As okay, so to the derive one class from another class using the syntax, and the Java by default support to inheritance. Okay, so one class can inherit the property and behavior, a state or behavior of any existing class. This known as a inheritance. So If you talking about the kind of example, let's we are discussing about the your bicycle. So as a object oriented, allow to inherit commonly used state and behavior from other class. Okay, in this case our bicycle is a one class, and I want to can like a mountain bike skill, road bikes, and a kind of a random bikes. So instead of there are some common your attributes state and some behavior are here, but I want to inherit from this class, from this class. In this way you can reuse the existing your state and behavior inside another class. Here you can edit some additional you can say attributes behavior as well as. So they help us to reuse inheritance, help us to reuse the existing designs as well as. If you're talking as a Java programming language, how we can inherit the behavior of your parent class, okay, using the keywords known as extents. For Java support, let's say this is your mountain bike. So this is your first you have your parent have a like a your parent bicycle. They have some attributes, and then they have some function. And now you want to create your mountain bike, so, and you can inherit the property, okay, from your parent class to your child class. And now in this keyword extend help us to creating inheritance in Java. So these sometime this is known as super class, yeah, parent. This is the sometime parent child relationship. Generally parents in the real life as well as we look this is the parent and this is the child. The child generally by default inherit the properties and behavior of your parents, sometime your nature, sometime your proper by default the properties some other lekin so each parent have some public property and some private property. So only public property which are able to inherited can inherit in the child. Okay, all the private data member, let's say parents have some private property, private his qualification that cannot be inherited by his any child. So there is some restrictions about how to maintain those restrictions, ki which attributes, which behavior the child class can inherit and which doesn't inherit. That is controlled by your access mechanism. So it's clear, inheritance help us to inherit the properties behavior of your superclass inside your subclass. So as we discuss about till now, what are the objects and what are the class and what are the inheritance. Object is the basic entity of any programming Java is a programming language. Class help us to this class decide class specify what how the object will create, what the attribute should be, what the behavior should be while the creating an object. And inheritance help us to inherit the existing designs, existing architects, existing blueprint while creating a new blueprints and new classes. Some are basic more three principle also Java used known as your polymorphism and abstractions and encapsulation. But these are the basic three core, you can say, uh, component core feature concept on which these three also constructed. So let's discuss this briefly about these polymorphism and abstractions and encapsulation. Sometime they are as a concept you should know what the meaning of the polymorphism. But these are one is the these classes and objects are the core components, core parts, and on the base on the top of these all four inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulations are work. So if we clear about the class and if you clear about the object, so it's very easy to understand the inheritance just inheriting the property of existing class from superclass to a subclass. So if you're talking about the polymorphism, Polymorphism is the ability of an object to take in many forms. The most common is a polymorphism in object-oriented programming language is when a parent class reference used to a child class, and the in Java object that can pass as a pass more than one object, and sometime you can look like a easy relationship and inheritance as a uh, has a relationship. So if you talking polymorphism sometime refer as a compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism, as well as compile time generally known as your method overloading, and runtime also known as your method overriding. Okay, so here the concept polymorphism means ki let's see we have a one parent class, and they have a multiple child one child two child three one two and three child. Okay, child, and you have parent class. Then generally here secure parent class reference is used to refer the child class. Means here your parent class can refer to your one child, as well as here runtime you can change parent class refer to the two child, and here parent class will also refer to the three child. Any objects of the one class object, or two class object, or three class object, you can assign your parent class. Reason parent class behavior is already inherited here. So whatever you have declared some variable and method here, the public data member already inherited here. So this is a your, you can say, a run times what the child object you are assigning to a parent class. Okay, this nature known as a polymorphism, a runtime. In the runtimes, let's key we have a one method take argument as a parent class. Okay, parent class taking as a argument. Here while invoking this method, if someone invoke a p methods, let's key your m1 methods. When m1 method invoke, here you have option, you can pass your parent class object itself, object of this class, that is a kind of your method overloading the same class you are passing. Okay, but sometime you pass as a object of c1 here, object of c1 here, then you are this while invoking this method, this doesn't know you are passing as a object of parent class or a child class. So here they are at a runtime, they are find out which object you pass. If you pass c1 object, the behavior look like a c1. If you pass as a c2 object, they work for the c2, right? So polymorphism is ability to take one object as many form. That the parent class have a multiple child class. Thus if you a parent class assign one child one, they behave parent class like a one child. If you have if we pass a second class object, they behave as a parent class behave as a second class object. So these are the polymorphism. And if we're talking about the programming terminology, polymorphisms can be found in two places. At the compile times, means when you are overloading the method, and also run times whenever you are overriding methods. So this way you are getting the use of the polymorphism. The polymorphism really many times used in our applications. We are lots of time we are using the method overloading, and lots of time we are using the method of overriding. So that is the very core principle of polymorphism also, and that help us to make our loose coupling with the help of your dynamic runtime polymorphism. If you're talking about the next feature about the abstractions, abstraction is a one of a key concept of the object oriented programming language, and it's a main goal to handle the complexity by hiding the unnecessary detail. Okay, so here what do you mean, handle the complexity by handling the unnecessary detail. Reason is that they are enforcing abstraction enforce what are the if one object have a lots of maybe methods behavioral communication, but the client perspective which they are used this object, they know the only the things which they want, not unnecessary part they were needed. They may be confused if you expose lots of method here which they want to use unnecessary. So lots of complexity hai, just hide all those complexity here and represent only that's the really needed for the end customer. The abstraction is just hiding all the unnecessary, all the complexity thing from the user perspective and expose only required the methods of behavior for the user. That is the abstraction. So abstraction help us to write a very clean code, and that's really needed by the end user, yeah, end client, that only methods can get. Rest unnecessary internal method invocation, private method unnecessary. Why need take care by the end user? So abstractions help us to design your code that's really needed by your end user. We are exposing, rest we are hiding. So majorly abstractions focus on your behavior parts, your methods part. Which methods you are exposing so that client can assume. Unnecessary method don't expose, and that doesn't any really sense for invoke by the user. Maybe your business sometimes like you have a method a function 1, function 2 and function 3. These three function your code say कि customer user should be invoke in the same order f1 f2 f3. But if you expose all these three function, the client which use this function, might be they invoke a first f3, then invoke f2, then invoke f1. In this way your order, your business logic should be break. What your business logic written first, you invoke the f1, then f2, then f3. So instead of invoking this complex sequence of order to customer, you just invoke one simple flat function fn. Okay, this customer only don't need f1 f2, they only invoke your fn function. And f1 function internally they have invoke or in the business value order they invoke f1, invoke f2 and invoke f3. This way we are hiding the complexity from the user and only exposing the required, the necessary parts, necessary behavior to the end user. That is the abstraction help us to design our software component very clean, that is really needed to use. uh, Next, about talking about the encapsulation. Encapsulation is a mechanism of wrapping the data or a variable and the methods as a co methods together in a single unit, just like we discussed about the object. So you can say the variable of a class will be hidden from other class, can be accessed only through the method of their current class. What do you mean that? Let's see, we have a one object, they have a variable 1 and variable 2, and other maybe object want to access this variable. Okay, so this variable can be accessed by if you are making this is the public. Okay, so if let's say this is the variable of name and age, or this client can be set directly your age. So generally in real time we have a attribute ki one person cannot age more than 500 30 1000. We have a limited to maybe 18 year. Let's say we have a one employee, so we have a limited range of employees 18 to 60 year. So if you expose this variable directly to the other class, they can put any value and you don't have any business logic. If this is the employee class and if employee class have a age attribute, there should be valid range between the 100 to employee have and 100 to 60 year. So if you space directly here as a public variable, then we can violate data inconsistency. Okay, someone sets different value, someone set different value. So instead of exposing all the public variable directly, they say ki what you want to really expose, what is the important to expose which variable. Instead of exposing directly, you say ki, just make it a private so that ki none of the other than this class can access it. Only expose some private method, and that method help us to check if let's keep provide the set age method, and this person let's 5 you're 90, and your business say ki you only allow 60 to 16 to 18 to 60 between. So we have to inform the to this call user, yeah, now you are setting the age more than 60, that is not a valid age for the employee. You should make some restriction, and accordingly if the user again send between the 18 to 16, and you can set those age into the particular age variable. So in this way we can control our data integrity. So maintain your data consistency and integrity with respect to our application, with respect to our business. Accordingly we have to ensure our data. So for that, this is kind of a your protecting data, only hiding all the data. And if some data want access by another class or object, they request to the some public segregator method, and those methods ensure that you are sending a right value for this or business value. So as a encapsulation, you protect your data and expose the required functionality, requires access of the variable. So in comparison between the abstractions and encapsulation, abstractions basically hiding the complexity with respect to the behavior, and encapsulation we are protecting your data members, so that unnecessary intensely some user cannot change the data validity, data integrity. And there are some time if we are going to use a applications, so sometime use a interface. So interface look like the interface is a contract between the class and the outside world. Okay, let's key this is the your you can say you are the some service provider, you want to provide the services to the outside the world. So outside the world how to make some contact key, you can only access my system or resources in this way. So this is the contact between your service consumer and what service provider. Let's say I'm a service provider, so that I can write some method, some signature in this format, so that the consumer of this methods behavior should be follow the same syntax and semantics. So that how to uh, inform to the consumers from the provider with the help of some interface. Interface is just the contract between the class, what class going to do, and outside of the applications, outside of the this class, who is going to access what the syntax and semantics. Okay, so when a class implementing an interface, its promise to provide the behavior published by the interface. So interface say I'm interface. I say let's give example. JDBC Java provide the JDBC interface. Okay, JDBC interface. So that as a Java programming language, we can use the your JDBC. Let's get connection, get SQL, execute query methods. So they as JDBC is a interface exposed, and all the vendor like your Oracle implement this specification, like MySQL, like other DB database. All the database have a implemented this JDBC interface, so that in application which want to access your database, they do not directly bound to the, they are writing a code for a MySQL database, or they are writing code for the NoSQL database, or writing code for your Postgres database. So if all the database have if this our applications are using the one interface, my JDBC interface, they know ki I have a JDBC interface, I know the execute method. Whatever database we are configure, we are using accordingly, each they provide the execute method. So this help us in future, and then new database come, so our application is not bound to the implementation of this vendor. Instead, they are depend upon your interface. Interface expose, anyone want to provide some kind of database services, they have implement this. So JDBC interface, that interface is implemented by your Oracle database, MySQL database, Postgre database, and Java application. They are using the JDBC interface to communicate database. Your code is the same. Your code doesn't change. Your code does not bound to a specific interface, right? So this interface help us to inform other party, other vendors we are going to implement the business. So our code, our applications which we are building, that is not tightly coupled to the outside of words. So if you want to some kind of insecurity, that help us in interface. Lots of inbuilt interface Java expose, like expose about the JDBC interface, like okay. Similarly, lots of interface they expose, and so that ki Java applications can read, write data in the SQL database without any depend upon the specific database they want to insert in the JDBC data through your MySQL database or Oracle database. They only know that this is JDBC API. I have to execute method. I have to insert method, and in this way your data is saved. They doesn't matter which implementation we are going to use. Okay, and next about I'm talking about the package, also one concept which generally used in Java. Package is a namespace, you can say, for organizing the classes and interface in a logical manner. Okay, whenever we are going to building applications, lots of classes and interface we are exposed. So as per the use case, this is the class and interface related to your mathematical calculations. So we put in the mathematics class. This is the class and interface related to the database communication. They are put in the database package. This classes interface are related to the your image processing. They are put in the image processing. So logically grouping the related classes interface in a particular logical manner, that known as a package. So placing your code into the package make large software project easier to manage. Okay, so this is the help us to making sometime package some programming like known in namespace in the, if you're talking about the window, it's like a folder. Okay, you want a folder, you just create one folder, inside those folder respective classes in interface input. So Java doesn't say directly folder name, but say this is the package. In this package lots of related classes interface you'll find. That is from my side today, and again say thank you for watching this video.